The chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Republican Congressman Mac Thornberry of Texas. Congressman, thank you for being on the show this morning. We're at the 355th mass shooting this year. There are 365 days in a year. What are your thoughts on curbing this violence?
Well, that we do have a violence problem in this country, and as your prior discussion pointed out, not all of these incidents are the same. You know, Speaker Paul Ryan talked this week about a major push on mental health, and many of these incidents are related to mental health. We do not know what this incident is related to. There may be a connection with terrorism, but we need to investigate and find out.
All right, well then let's stick with that conversation. You say many of these incidents are related to mental health. Some of them are related to other things. They're all related to guns. What do you think can be done to curb gun violence and the existence of high-capacity guns in our society and in the wrong hands?
Yeah, well, actually, your report just pointed out this was not just a gun issue. These folks had built pipe bombs and other devices. So the point is, if someone is determined to kill a lot of people, then there are a variety of ways that they can do that. Now, are there some things that could be done? Sure, and I think there's ideas floating around about making sure that people who have been adjudged mentally deficient in some way are not able to get guns. But we shouldn't try to think that, okay, if somebody's going to go kill a bunch of people, then a new law related to guns is going to prevent that from happening. Obviously, they're willing to violate whatever laws are necessary.
But you mentioned the pipe bombs and the other things that were used. Again, all these incidences have the 355 of them have one common thread, and that is guns. And you say, can something be done? Sure. What does sure mean? I mean, are you looking at background checks? Or is there anything concrete that you would accept on the table to curb gun violence and the existence of high-capacity guns in the wrong hands in our society that is making gun violence a daily existence in our country?
Well, I just mentioned that greater information sharing between mental illness and those who are adjudged mentally ill and the ability to buy guns is one area. I think there could be a tightening of the regulations. I'm a little concerned, however, that we focus all of this attention on the instrumentality without getting to the more root cause, which do get to mental illness and other sorts of motivations in our society. And that's really where the focus needs to be. And I'm sorry, there's not going to be a simplistic answer that Congress can pass that prevents all of these violent episodes from happening.
But Mac, Joe Scarborough here, but what about background checks for people on terror watch lists? I had a 100% rating with the NRA when I served up there with you. Why the hell can't we say that it makes rational sense to at least have background checks for Americans on terror watch lists?
Yeah, I think we ought to pursue that in a way where the terror watch list is more carefully defined. So, for example, in the past few days, I have personally heard of police sheriffs, a variety of people who are on the terrorist watch list. So what happens is we dump a bunch of names onto this list for a variety of reasons, and then we want to infringe a Second Amendment right just because of some administrative error. And so, you know, maybe it could be tightened up. Maybe you could have a different sort of list that would make sense. I'm certainly open to pursuing that.
Okay.
But this kind of widespread, okay, if we just make a new law on guns and then all of this goes away, I think that's delusional.
Nobody's suggesting.
I
don't think anybody's suggesting that.
Chairman, it's Willie Geist. Good to have you with us this morning. Let me put to you a question. I think you'll be in a better position to answer it than I would. It's something I've been asked over the last 12 hours, and I've read a lot online. The question is, why should an American be able to walk into, say, a Walmart? We don't know where these guns were purchased, but, for example, a Walmart, and buy a .223 semi-automatic rifle? What's the practical use for that?
Well, I don't know. I'm not familiar personally with that particular rifle. I do remember when Joe and I were first elected to Congress that there was a big hubbub about assault-style rifles, and actually what it was just the cosmetic look of those guns. It didn't have anything to do with the way it actually functioned. So again, I think we're looking too much for simplistic answers to problems that are much more complex. And in a world that is increasingly dangerous, where you do have terrorists that are trying to attack this country, we need to look a little deeper and a little more seriously at the root causes, not the superficial ones.
Chairman, I think we agree on that. We've been talking this morning that there isn't a law that's being proposed right now that would have stopped this gentleman based on what we know about him. But just back to the question, again, it's one I've been hearing a lot. Is there a practical daily use for the 223?
Yeah, I don't know the 223. Now, obviously, fully automatic rifles are not allowed in this country.
This was semi-automatic, right?
Yeah. Well, so is my shotgun, by the way. Semi-automatic means I don't have to cock it every time.
But see, this is the argument, Mac, with all due respect, that is so frustrating. If you say you shouldn't have assault rifles in America, then you hear, well, they were banned in 1933 or 1934. And then you go, okay, let me clarify my definition. And then you say we shouldn't have semi-automatic weapons in America. And then the argument comes back, say, well, you know, you're trying to take my handgun or my shotgun away. There's a big difference between your shotgun and a Bushmaster that was used to slaughter little first graders in Newtown, or the 223 that was used to slaughter people at a Christmas party yesterday.
You do know those guns, right?
Joe, I think you hit the point at the beginning. You said assault weapon. Well, that doesn't really have a definition. Fully automatic weapons have been outlawed since the 30s, as you point out. Semi-automatic is my shotgun, where I don't have to reload or cock it every time I want to hit another quail flying over. So I do think we get into definitional issues, and also just the style of the gun so people start throwing labels. Well, this is an assault weapon. Well, what does that really mean? It is the functioning of the machinery that defines an automatic versus semi-automatic weapon.
All right. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. We hear you have to head on. We greatly appreciate your time here.
Sure.
Even though we certainly